Avanoa le Radio Samoa on Samoa male Palimia Filfilio New Zealand Prime Minister-elect Honourable Christopher Luxon is on board. Atalofa lava and kia ora. Good morning. Welcome to the program, Christopher Luxon.
Alofa, good to be with you. Looking forward to it.
How are you, sir, this morning?
I'm great. I'm always good. We've got a lot to do in this country, so I'm always excited about how we realise more of our potential. So there's lots to do.
Yeah, okay. Well, a huge and a big congratulations from all of us here at Radio Samoa. Now, tell us, you must be very happy after the election on the 14th of October, Christopher Luxon.
Yeah, look, it was a great result. We'd worked incredibly hard as a national party. You might remember we had a terrible result 3 years earlier. I became the leader probably just almost 2 years ago, and we've worked incredibly hard as a team, and that meant first and foremost we had to come together as a national party and be one team. Secondly, we had to hold the government to account, and then thirdly, we had to have good ideas to take the country forward, and that's what we tried to articulate this year. So it's really satisfying. But now the real work begins, because New Zealanders are doing it really tough. Yeah. You know, you think about the price of food and rent and fuel. Right. If you think about what's happening with law and order, if you think about what's happening with health and education, those are the big things that New Zealanders want us to go to work on.
Okay, we'll talk about those later on the program, Christopher Luxon. Now, tell me, I was watching on that night, I saw a big swing from red to blue, from left to right, and winning some strong Labour seats in the likes of Mount Roscoe, Mount Albert, and Avondale, and maybe the other two as well. What was behind your campaign before the election?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of it was actually just realising that the economy was job number one, that actually the cost of living crisis is out of control. We feel very strongly that a lot of what the government did created high inflation, which actually has led to the challenges that people are experiencing. But you're right. I mean, we worked incredibly hard, and I spent a lot of my time in what I call the battleground seats, that we had a determination that in places like Mangere and places like Manurewa, which have been very strong Labour strongholds, we took tens of thousands of party votes out of those electorates. We had fantastic candidates. If you think about people like Rosemary Burke and Angie Nicholas, Shiva Kalare, they did a brilliant job advocating for the party, but also advocating for people, and I think that's what they wanted to see. So a lot of it was just we stuck to our core messages, which was understanding cost of living, health, education, law and order.
Okay, Mr. Luxon, let's talk about coalition talk. How is that going?
Look, it's progressing well. It's a really frustrating time, I'm sure, for everyone, because we have an MMP system. The election night results are delivered, and then it's contingent upon me and obligated to go find, to work with the parties that actually can form a strong and stable government, which is really important for New Zealand. Obviously, our special votes don't get all counted until 3 weeks later, so they're due to come out on Friday afternoon, and then we know exactly what the final results of the election are, and we know that every vote has then been counted and been respected. But in the intervening period, we're building the relationships. We're progressing the arrangements with those respective parties. I am doing it quite differently this time. I'm not actually giving a blow-by-blow to the media every day about it, because actually the New Zealand people voted for change, and we've got to get on and I've got to build those relationships and agree that agenda with those respective parties. So we're working hard at that.
Mr. Luxon, you did announce that you're more than happy to work together with Vasamare and Winston Peters, the leader of New Zealand First, before the election. Now, what's your preference? Working together with ACT, and I'm saying National ACT Coalition, or you still need Winston Peters, only if you need him?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm progressing arrangements with both parties because, as I said, I was clear about saying, who I'd work with before the campaign, and we'll continue those conversations. But again, I'm not really going to get into too much chat around the coalition conversations, as you'd expect, just because, and I know people are interested in it, but I just don't think it's productive. I think, the bottom line is my job is to make sure I deliver for the New Zealand people. And ultimately that means at this stage, I need to form a strong and stable government. And that means building those relationships, advancing those arrangements with those parties.
Would you rather prefer working with ACT than working together with ACT and New Zealand First?
I think I can work with anyone, and so that's my job as the Prime Minister, is to make sure that's a very strong and stable government. That's what I'll make sure happens.
Okay, you did mention a few issues that we're facing at the moment. Now we have shortage of doctors, the nurses, the midwives, and the list goes on. What can the new government do with this, Mr. Luxon?
Yeah, look, I mean, in healthcare, we've got some major challenges. We've got to move the money from the centre out to the community organisations and to the front line, to doctors, nurses, hospitals, etc., and primary care. We have to set targets again. All our wait list times, if you think about access in an emergency department, access getting your first surgery, your first specialist, all of that has gone backwards. But you identify exactly the right issue, which is that the third issue is really around workforce, and that we're 4,500 nurses short. We're 1,700 doctors short of what we need. And so what we've said is, look, on the doctor front, we'll open up a third medical school. We intend to sign a memorandum of understanding with Waikato University in our first 100 days, because that means that we can train more homegrown doctors, and also we're going to expand the places at Auckland and Otago as well. So we should have a lot more doctors coming through in a very quick period of time that are homegrown. And then on the nurses front, and if you're a nurse and a midwife, and we train about 2,000 a year, we're going to say if you stay in New Zealand for 5 years, and you bond your services to the New Zealand healthcare system, we'll take $22,500 off your student loan. And, having met with a lot of young nursing students who are about to graduate, even just on the weekend, I can tell you, that's making a big difference, because we don't want them, to be honest, leaving at 2 or 3 years after graduating and going off to Sydney or Melbourne or London. We want them to stay here in New Zealand. And if they're prepared to do that, we'll help them by taking that debt, or some of that debt away from them. So, yeah, those are things we've got to do. And then we've got to open it up internationally to doctors and nurses that are qualified and say, hey, listen, come to New Zealand. You don't even have to have a job lined up. Bring your family. You will get a job because they're available. And then we'll spend $10,000 relocating you here.
When you mention schools, let's talk about cell phone ban in school. What will it improve students' mental well-being and education outcomes, Mr. Luxon?
Yeah, look, I mean, we looked at all the international research. We looked at the schools, whether they're in Decile 1, Decile 5 or Decile 10 schools across New Zealand that have already implemented a ban. And when we spoke to the kids and teachers and principals and parents, we can see that their learning outcomes have been improved dramatically. So actually just doing, which many schools do, drop off your phone in the morning at the office. If mum and dad need to get hold of you, or a carer or a grandparent, they can call the office like we used to in our day, and then take it when you leave school. But I think not having the phone in play time and lunch breaks and stuff is actually good as well, because a lot of that cyberbullying stuff happens through the phone and in that period of time. So look, it's good, I think, in terms of academic focus, and that people aren't distracted by mobile phones in classrooms, and that's what's been happening. So it helps learning. But also, I think you're right. I think it has some real benefits on well-being and stopping some bullying behaviour, which we don't have a good track record in New Zealand around bullying. It's not something we should be proud of.
Mr. Luxon, let's talk about the first 100 days you did promise if you win the election. What's in there for our Pacific Island people and, of course, all of New Zealand?
Well, look, we've got to get the economy moving. That is job number one. Pacific Island folk that I spoke to through the campaign and continue to talk with, just say, look, they are doing it really hard, They're dealing with rising food prices at all-time highs. They're dealing with rents that are up $180 a week. They're dealing with massive increases in fuel. And if you're lucky enough to own a home, then your mortgage rate's gone through the roof, and you've got to find an extra $500, $600, $700 a fortnight at a higher interest rate. Why is that all happening? It's happened because government spending has got out of control, and wasteful government spending. And as a result, that's led to inflation, which has led to high interest rates, which has slowed the economy down. So we've got to really tackle the causes of inflation. And that's what a lot of our 100-day plan will be about, is just trying to get the country moving again, and getting through some of those actions quickly.
How will the 4 weeks parental leave for partners look like in the new government, Mr. Luxon?
Yeah, look, I mean, Nicola Willis had a very good members bill, which the government didn't react like, but actually I think really desperately wanted to do it as well. Thought it was good common sense, but just didn't want to admit it was a good idea. But basically, in New Zealand, there's 26 weeks paid parental leave, and all we're saying is we're giving some flexibility to parents to say, look, it might be that both parents actually want to be on parental leave for a period of time, and they can move it between themselves and juggle it as they see fit. And depending on different circumstances, and there's a lot of different circumstances, we're giving the parents flexibility to work out how they use that leave themselves, and they can transfer it and use it between each other. They can use it at the same time. It might well be that a partner needs support from the other partner. There's a whole bunch of different calculations. So, yeah, that's our policy, and we'll look to get that implemented as quickly as possible too.
Okay, before I let you go, Mr. Luxon, when was the last time you've been to the beautiful island of Samoa, and fond memories of that trip?
Yeah, look, I was there with you actually, I think in August last year, 2022. And it was a great trip, wasn't it? I mean, it was a fantastic trip. And I had met with Prime Minister Fiame when she had just been elected and had come to power in Wellington. I was very impressed by her. I think she's incredibly smart, very thoughtful, a very, very wise person and leader. And so I was very impressed by her, and it was good to be part of that delegation where actually leaders of all the political parties went to Samoa, which I thought was important because irrespective of our politics, we know how important that partnership and relationship with Samoa is. And it was awesome to see her in charge of her cabinet. We actually met with the Samoan cabinet and had a good conversation with their ministers. But she's a very good leader and a very effective leader.
Mr. Luxon, my last question, please. Now we have travel visa free between New Zealand and across the Tasman. Do you think the new government will do the same between New Zealand and Samoa?
Again, we'll look into all of that, but I think it's a bit too premature. Our real focus at the moment is to form a government, to get a set agenda in place, and then to focus on the things that we can to get the cost of living down in particular. But those are things that we'll look to once we've appointed a government and once we've appointed a ministry and a minister for immigration in particular.
Okay. Did you have time to watch the big final?
I did. I actually went into a bar in the city and watched it, and I mean, it was gripping stuff, wasn't it? I mean, it was just. I mean, if I said to someone, if I could have pulled out any more here, I would have, but there was nothing to pull out. But look, it was. I'm really proud of that team because they've been through a lot of adversity.
Right.
They've had a lot of critics. They've blocked out the noise. They came together as a team. They got to the final of a Rugby World Cup, which was pretty tough, and they lost it by 1 point. And so I think they played incredibly well as a team, and we should be very proud of them.
Honourable Christopher
Luxon. Disappointing as the result is.
I know.
I think we can acknowledge that they did exceptionally well.
Yeah. Okay. Prime Minister-elect Honourable Christopher Luxon, whawhetai tele lava, thank you so much for your time.
It's been great being with you.
Whawhetai lava. O le talaranga ma le palemia filifili o New Zealand, Honourable Christopher Luxon, and nei tai au tau tō mo le Samoa's whalima i matolo a mo ino o tau luas fuliva mino tolo o tō le talo le tū la. Eva.